All right, welcome back to Russell Street Replay. I'm excited to bring our first live show streaming on YouTube, and obviously we're using StreamYard to help us get in our fellow podcasters here today. As always, with me is Ron Tooth and our good friend Mike Natelli. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Doing great, man. First time being live on YouTube. It's exciting times. Good things are happening around here.
Yeah, it's good to be here, guys.
All right, so I guess first we can start off with a little bit of roundup of the recent Ravens news. And I guess the first thing I'm kind of curious about, what do you guys think about the reunion with Brent Urban? Kind of versatile defensive lineman who, if I remember correctly, is coming off an injury, which seems to be a common theme for a lot of our defenders this year. But what do you guys think of that signing? Does it get you excited? Nice to see him back, or is it just another depth piece?
To me, it's probably mostly another depth piece. I mean, he did have a career year in Chicago in 2020, was in Dallas this year. As you mentioned, he had a triceps injury that kind of knocked him out for the year. But to me, it just seems like he's going to ultimately end up taking Derek Wolfe's spot. And they're very similar players in a lot of ways. So it really seems like, I mean, I guess it's a plus in the sense that we didn't have Wolfe last year, so we will have him. But in terms of the overall roster, it seems like it's ultimately just going to be like a lateral step going from Wolfe to Urban. But it is good to have him back. Always good to have former Ravens come back to town. So I'm here for it.
Yeah, so anyone who knows me knows that as someone who didn't really see the Marcus Williams signing coming and didn't expect us to make any big splashes, my whole my big master plan for the offseason was dubbed the Brent Urban plan. And that was signing as many depth style, quality depth pieces to supplement a star-studded roster as possible. So yeah, it's absolutely a depth piece, but for a team that primarily suffered last year due to a lack of depth, you got to love bringing in someone who's familiar with the organization, who's familiar with the culture, who's committed to sort of the Ravens way of doing things, and who can be a really nice rotational piece on the defensive line.
Yeah, and then another even bigger signing came this past week with the signing of cornerback Kyle Fuller, and I think that's a huge signing to really round out the cornerback room. I think it's the last piece we need in our secondary because the one thing as excited you are to land Hamilton and Marcus Williams this offseason is that you're still relying on either a second year player who played safety last year, Brandon Stevens, or you're going to end up relying on a rookie or another random practice squad cornerback in case Marlon or Marcus Peters go down early, can't come back right away all the way, have a setback, anything like that. I think signing Kyle Fuller is a guy who can give you quality snaps outside. He played pretty well for the first time in his career in the slot last year in Denver, and so I think that versatility is going to be used too. I'm curious to see what the money is. I don't think they've announced how much money it's for. And, the Ravens still haven't signed all their rookies. So I'm sure some more moves have to be coming. But, unless this is a crazy overpay, which I think he had a 1 year, $9.5 million deal with Broncos last year. That's definitely a lot more than I'd want to pay. I think I'd look for something maybe closer to 6 or 7. Then I'd be really happy with that deal.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, it's definitely not going to be in that 9 area when you look at how he did play last year, even though he did kind of step it up more down the stretch. He had a really rough start to the year to the point that he got benched. But I mean, besides that, he's been one of the more consistent kind of mid-tier corners in the league. And to me, he kind of joins that group of the Elvis Dumervilles, the Justin Forsets, even the Trevor Prices, these veterans who maybe have a down year or two, but then come to Baltimore and they sort of get that resurgence, that career resurgence. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if Fuller was just the next name in what's a pretty long list of guys who've done that.
Yeah, and even if he's not, I mean, this is a team that ran out Robert Jackson against Devontae Adams last year. So you got to love when suddenly your cornerback 3 is Kyle Fuller. I'm not expecting him to return back to that Pro Bowl caliber form, but for me, the biggest box you had to check out of a veteran corner signing this year was in a world where, let's hope this world doesn't exist, but in a world where Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters can't go 1 week, can he be a cornerback 1 in a pinch? Can you live with him being an emergency CB1? And Kyle Fuller definitely checks that box. He's a veteran who's seen every move you can get thrown at you as a corner in this league. He's not so old that he has no more wheels to keep up with top receivers. He has that inside-outside versatility, which when you talk about Mike Macdonald wanting to scheme things very creatively, you can line him inside and drop him into an outside boundary zone. You can drop him, sort of stage him outside as a boundary corner and drop him back inside as a more of a slot guy over the middle. He can handle all over the place. And so you got to love the versatility. You got to love the experience. And even if he's not corner 3 and gets beat out in camp, you just for more of like a CB4, CB5 spot, you just got to love having someone with that kind of experience on the roster as your CB3.
Yeah, you know, it's funny, not to cut you off here, Nikhil, but I saw a quote from Wink Martindale this morning, and somebody asked him, I believe the question was like, what did you learn from the 2021 season, like with the Ravens? And I believe the quote was, don't go shopping for cornerbacks with DoorDash, which I think he kind of missed the mark on what he was going for, but we get what he meant. And it's clear that the Ravens learned that lesson too, because again, bringing in a guy who's got an established history, who we've seen can do it both on the inside and the outside, as opposed to just, you know, hoping that Jalen Armour Davis is what we hope he'll be, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I think the other thing about Fuller is that it lets the Ravens play more matchups. I think that that's something that they have wanted to do in the past for some time, is be able to move around Marlon, be able to move around Marcus on the specific opposing players that they want them to match up on. And, you know, in this case, they're going to be able to put Fuller outside, say the best opposing receiver on the other team plays out of the slot. Well, you can drop Marlon in there and keep him against the other team's wide receiver 1, and Fuller can flex outside. So I think that flexibility is going to be really useful. You know, the other kind of signing, if we can call it that, is signing Brett Hundley. And I think that is more of a, you know, getting a training camp arm. But that kind of gets me into the kind of the latest news and notes out of OTAs. It seems like the young receivers are just kind of ready to prove themselves. They've kind of been handed the reins over this season, and they seem really excited to have the opportunity. It seems like almost finally to have the opportunity, because Duvernay and Proche had to wait 2 seasons. Tylan Wallace had to wait a year before really getting a lot of like starting snaps, and they're going to be able to have that this season.
Yeah, well, the signing of Hundley was unfortunately a necessity, because there's only one quarterback in camp at the moment, and you can make of that what you will. Is there 2?
Okay. Anthony Brown, the undrafted rookie.
That's right, out of Oregon. Yeah, forgive me. The point I was trying to make is you can make of that, and I'm sure once we get to July and August and camp kicks off and Lamar's going to be there, and it's going to be no problem at all. But it is definitely interesting, because to me, Lamar not showing up for or any player not showing up for camp, it feels like something that somebody does as like a contract statement. You know what I mean? Like, you probably expect Kyler Murray's not showing up to at least OTAs, potentially not camp this year. The Ravens have tried to negotiate with Lamar, and he's the one who hasn't wanted to negotiate. So while he's not wanting to negotiate, but at the same time also doing things that you would see from a player who's not getting what they want in contract negotiations, it is interesting, and it's at least worth a discussion, I think.
Yeah, this feels like pretty classic Lamar, and in all the best and worst ways. Best in that you don't think that he's doing it as some sort of middle finger to the team, but it's also just kind of his unique process. You got to think it's about sort of self-preservation, but without being defiant in any way. I think he went on Twitter a couple days ago and was just like, can't wait to get to work or something like that. Trying to kind of quell that there was some sort of rift he has with the Ravens, and that being the source of his absence. But, you know, love that they brought in another camp body who at least plays a relatively similar style to Lamar Jackson, so you can kind of mimic that. And at the same time, maybe it's not the worst thing that the first quarterback that's thrown to these guys is Tyler Huntley, a guy who's thrown more passes in practice to guys like Tylan Wallace, to guys like James Proche, get them kind of acclimated with someone they have more chemistry with. And then when training camp hits, once they've had that sort of familiarity to get those plays in and get those reps in with someone they're more comfortable with, then you get to bring in Lamar, who has those receivers kind of already up to speed and back in the groove of things. So obviously not ideal, but, you know, there's also some silver lining to it, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want, ideally he's there and he's getting in those reps with his would-be starters this season. But I think that's the thing with Lamar. He's always kind of marched to the beat of his own drum. You know, these are voluntary OTAs, and so he's not required to be there. And so I think they'd prefer the team would prefer that he's there. But I also think at the same time that it's it's Lamar being Lamar, like you said. It's not the problem is not so much what he's doing, more how it looks, right? It looks like what Ron said, like it's something with his contract, whereas it's really just Lamar being Lamar. And I think, as long as Lamar's comfortable with that and the Ravens are comfortable with that, there shouldn't be any issue. The problem is when, the Ravens like, all right, dude, just come to OTAs, come for the 2 hours or whatever we need you for. And he's not there, then it becomes an issue. But I think, that we'll see how that goes later in the offseason. Their priority right now is, getting the rookies together, getting the new defense installed, that kind of thing. And Lamar being there would be good, but it's not going to make or break anything.
No, it's definitely not going to make or break anything. I think another reason why I would just really kind of prefer to have him there right now is because he was hurt at the end of the last year. And it's, who knows how long it takes to get back up to form. I know none of us are professional athletes, so none of us can relate to his current situation, but just because he missed so much time at the end of last year, you'd really like to see him making every effort. And he has made efforts. I mean, he's had the videos of him throwing with Bateman and Prochet and all that. But this seems sort of just like what would have been a slam dunk opportunity to be like, hey, whatever's going on with my contract or whatever, I'm here with my guys. And he'll probably be there tomorrow again, and it'll be all for naught. But just to, like what you said, Nikhil, optically, it isn't really the best right now.
Yeah, no, and especially when guys like Mark Andrews and Marlon Humphrey are talking about, we're here to set the tone, we're here to lead, we're here to put in that work. It's not even so much, it's an optics thing, but it also feels like there's a void that exists in the locker room then when the guys who are saying that are not the quarterback. There's just something weird about that. But at the same time, it's Lamar being Lamar, and he does things his way. And I think it'd be more concerning if we didn't see him put in work with guys like Rashad Bateman in the offseason. If it was, then you can start worrying about, is he lazy? Is he not trying? Is he not? But when that's the case and he is putting in that work, it makes it easier to chalk it up to just him having a very unique process and kind of just being what it is.
Yeah, Ron, Mike, any other news and notes in the Ravens recently that you want to cover? Are you guys ready to launch into our draft tonight?
No, let's do it, baby. Let's draft. I'm ready to smoke you guys.
All right, so for a draft, we're gonna do a couple of these drafts over the course of the off season while we've got some extra time, no games to recap. And so the first one we're doing is we're gonna build 7-on-7 teams. This week we're building our offense. And what we're going to do is we're going to go in a snake draft order, and we've already set the order before we started recording. It's going to go, I'm going to pick first, Ron is going to pick second, and Mike is going to pick third. And then Mike is going to have another pick, the first pick of the second round. Ron will pick, and then I will have the last pick of the second round. We'll go back and forth until all 7 picks are made, so that we each have a 7-person offense, and then in a future episode, we'll be doing a defense. The positions are going to be pretty standard: quarterback, 1 interior offensive lineman, so that's a guard or center, an offensive tackle, a running back, a tight end, a wide receiver, and 1 wild card. And so that wild card can be any position on offense. And the one other important thing to note about this draft is that we're drafting these players based on how they've played as Ravens. And it's just like a general idea of what their talents are, at how they played as Ravens. We're not picking specific seasons. We're not picking specific stretches or under specific coordinators or anything crazy like that. But it is representative of how these guys played as Ravens. And so you can't necessarily pick a player who spent 1 season in Baltimore as a backup when he was 38 and had, 5 really good seasons with another team, and was a Pro Bowl. You can't pick that player for his Pro Bowl time. You can pick him for the time he was 38 and on the Ravens backing up if you want. But I think that pretty much covers it. Guys, are there any other questions?
No, just to also note that these teams will be drafted. It's not so much just the idea of, we're picking the best players in Ravens history at these positions. 7-on-7 is a very different kind of, more of a speed related kind of game. So we're adding that fun little wrinkle into it, just so we're not sitting here saying, just doing a draft of the most obvious best Ravens of all time.
Yeah. And I think that's
and with that, give us your first pick, Nikhil.
Yeah. And unfortunately, with what Ron's saying, it is a draft where I think there are going to be some personal favorites, personal picks in this. But the one overall pick, like in building
Buck Allen
team, there is There is no other thing to do than to pick Lamar Jackson as my quarterback. He's the best quarterback this franchise has ever had. He's the only player to win MVP of regular season that this franchise have ever had. Or did Jamal Lewis win it once? I don't remember. Anyway, he is just the best quarterback out there. And in terms of strategy, you get the best quarterback at the first overall pick. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ron for the second pick.
Yeah, just before we go on, I mean, if there's any sport that Lamar Jackson was more tailor-made for besides regular 11-on-11 tackle football, it's 7-on-7 football.
It's tag, like you can't touch it.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's unfortunately, it feels like just whoever has Lamar automatically is going to win this draft, but we're going to try like hell here to usurp that. So when you think about 7-on-7 football, it's usually a 50-yard field. You want guys on the outside who can get down the field fast and make contested catches. So my first pick is going to be my wide receiver. I'm going Steve Smith Sr. Give me a tough guy down there who you can throw it up to in the end zone. And he's going to muscle, even if he's not the biggest guy in the world, he's going to muscle it away from the guy that he's going up against. He's going to get down the field pretty quick. If we're talking receivers, I think it's a slam dunk at number 2.
All right, Steve. So I like that pick. That's a really good pick. Mike, your first round pick, and you've got 2 back-to-back now.
That's right. So with the first round pick, we're going to go with Ray Rice at running back. Now, so obviously we acknowledge Ray's off the field issues. We acknowledge that obviously is a thing, but we're talking about on field performance. And what you like about Ray, especially in a 7-on-7 format, is not only is he a great running back, but you feel good about if you want to kind of flex him out, maybe have him catch some passes. And so that, to me, especially not having Lamar quarterback, having someone else back there, we'll see who it is. That was important to me. I guess we're turning right back over to me here. And let's see. The next pick, first pick of the second round. Let's go Steve McNair. Why not?
Wow.
I've gone back and forth on this. I feel pretty good about some options later on at other spots. I think that when you're thinking about backyard football, the combination of 7-on-7 football,
same thing.
combination of McNair's legs and his arm talent, I think there's just a big drop between him and the next option. And so for me, just sort of snatching up that value there in this format was important.
Yards per attempt on the ground in Baltimore, would you like to hear? 2.7.
That's all right.
Rough legs at that point in his career. He was 33.
That's all right.
I still respect the pick, though. I was hoping that Michael was just going to go Flacco, and I was going to be able to get it. Not to mention other picks that could be down the line. All right, so we're back to me here. I think I'm going to go with my wild card on this one because I really want to make sure that I have the best wide receivers out there. So I went back and forth between whether I wanted to take this guy or Steve Smith right off the rip. I ended up going with Smith, but I couldn't be more happy to have him come back to me. I'm going Torrey Smith for the exact same reasons that I drafted Steve. You want a guy who can get down the field quick, who your quarterback can throw it up to, and he can make a catch like the one Torrey Smith made right before the half against Denver in the Mile High Miracle. I mean, again, slam dunk, and I don't think there's any touch in this wide receiver core.
I like that. Going hard after wide receivers right off the bat. This puts me in an interesting position because I didn't think Jamal Lewis was going to be sitting here. And so,
but he's not, he's probably like the 4th running back I would draft from Ravens history, legitimately, for a 7-on-7.
I mean, I think he's still Jamal. I know speed is a priority in 7-on-7, but he's still Jamal Lewis. And that's why I'm not really quite sure what I'm going to do here because I was debating between a few different players. I think the first one I'm going to go with, just to clear this one out right away, is Marshall Yanda.
Okay.
Far and away the best interior offensive lineman in team history, one of the best offensive guards in NFL history, and Lamar Jackson will be well protected. But this next pick is a little bit tougher. And I think Ron actually kind of won me over by going wide receiver right away.
It's my fantasy football strategy every year.
Yeah, I mean, he took my number 1 receiver, which I kind of figured was going to happen before I got the chance to get him after I got Lamar. So I'm going to go with Anquan Bolden because Anquan Bolden was a beast in Baltimore. I actually think he was better in Baltimore than he was in Arizona personally, but that's definitely just my bias. But like you said, having that guy who has that contested catch ability that just seems to make catches whenever you need him. I'm going to go ahead and take Anquan Bolden. So my offense so far is Lamar Jackson, Marshall Yanda, and Anquan Bolden. Ron, back to you.
Back to me. He was my wide receiver 5, by the way, in this draft. All right, I think this one automatically is going to be the steal of the draft, and I think I have the tight end position locked up now too. I'm taking Mark Andrews. Again, kind of like Lamar in the sense that like very few guys are like the only sport that I feel like Andrews would be more tailor-made for than regular football is 7-on-7 football. He's athletic as hell. He's that guy that just releases off the end of the line in 7-on-7 and just sits there in the middle of the field, maybe puts a little shake on some unathletic middle linebacker plumber guy. At least that's from my experience playing 7-on-7 football. But just all jokes aside, give me Andrews, and I think that pretty much locks up the tight end category for Team Tooth.
All right, so I got 2 now, right?
Yes.
All right, so first, let's go tight end. And I think that when we think tight end 2 in Ravens history, we go Todd Heap. But I'm thinking of the guy who took one over 80 yards to the house very famously over the middle with wheels. I'm going Shannon Sharp.
Ooh,
tight end.
Great pick. Oh, great pick.
So, no disrespect to Todd Heap, one of my favorite Ravens of all time. But when we're thinking 7-on-7 format, give me Shannon Sharp. And then a tackle, Ogden is still there. Give me Jonathan Ogden. Kind of seal it up. Like we said, McNair's legs not quite what they were when he was in Tennessee. So buy him a little extra time if he needs to bootleg one out. I still give him the edge over Flacco there in terms of athleticism. And that first year he was in Baltimore, things weren't so brutal. So fresh off a Pro Bowl season when he had gotten there. So give me, I'm looking at McNair, Ray Rice, Shannon Sharp, and Jonathan Ogden so far. I'm feeling pretty good.
All right, Mike, back to you. Or Ron, back to you.
Yep, back to me here. So far, I have Steve Smith, Torrey Smith, and Mark Andrews. So skill position dream here. So I think now I'm gonna go and I'm gonna lock up my running back. And in 7-on-7 football, the main thing you want from your running back is a guy who can catch the ball out of the backfield. When your receivers aren't getting open and you just need some guy to dump it off to and get a couple yards. Because of that, I'm going Justin Forsett. Give me a nice, solid receiving option out of the backfield. I believe he had 40 catches both of his seasons in Baltimore. If they wasn't, it was right around there. But a clearly capable catcher of the football, a guy who's got some great moves. And I really went back and forth on him and Dobbins, but ultimately the receiving ability is what it came down to for me. So give me Justin Forsett.
All right, we got Justin Forsett heading to Ron's team. With my next pick, this is kind of a weird one to pick because his our more recent memories of him are just marked by injury. But Ronnie Stanley is the best tackle in the NFL when he was healthy, by a pretty wide, not maybe by a pretty wide margin, but I think there's no doubt he was the best offensive tackle in the NFL in 2018 and 2019. He was just superb, and so he's gonna form the other part of my line here. I was really hoping Ogden might fall to me late, but I figured that was unlikely that a Hall of Famer followed me all the way here at the end of the 4th round. And for my 5th pick, I've got Anquan Bolden already, and I actually think I'm going to go ahead and go back to wide receiver, go with my wild card, and I'm going to go with Rashad Bateman here. I think I was really torn between him and Hollywood Brown, because Hollywood kind of feels like he might be built for 7-on-7 because he's so quick. Mm-hmm. But honestly, he didn't make that many guys miss outright for the Ravens. I felt like he had the shake, but not the bake. He might be able to turn his guy around right after the catch, but he just you never see him go off on a run and make 3 guys miss like you'll see some of those great run after catch receivers do. And so that's why I think I'll go with Rashad Bateman, because Bateman, we've seen him do that already. We've seen him shake and bake pass guys already when he takes those short little passes there. So I'm going to add him to my receiving core, and Lamar Jackson's going to be thrown to Anquan Bolden, Rashad Bateman. And I know this is not part of the draft, but I'm just saying, if Lamar Jackson had 2012 era Anquan Bolden, this team would be Super Bowl favorites. No doubt in my mind, because he is exactly what the receiving court needs. So I think that was a little bit special for me to have Bolden and Bateman as the wide receiver 1 and 2 as a dream combo for Lamar right now.
Team Molasses. No, I'm just kidding. I could never dream to run even a quarter as fast as either of those men. So we're back to me here. And
Aikman ran like a 4.3, like a 4.4. I don't know where he gets
I'm just bragging on you because the guys that I have. I'm sure Bateman might even be faster than Steve Smith. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but just joshing you. Anyway, so you guys both have your quarterbacks and your tackles locked up. So I'm going to wait on that. And I'm going to address the interior offensive line here. And there's two guys I'm going back and forth on, but I'm going to take the guy that I like more and the guy who's just more of a bully. And I'm going to go Ryan Jensen.
Damn it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Drink it in, pal. Yeah. Give me Jensen. Let's start the offensive line on a really strong note. Give a guy who's going to take no crap and who's going to make sure nobody touches his quarterback.
I like it. That's a good pick. Well, I guess I got to do my receiver and my flex here. So give me first. We're going to go Derek Mason. Got that chemistry with Steve McNair. Probably a consensus top 3 receiver in Ravens history with Bolden and with I guess maybe I don't know. I guess you can debate Smith as far as talent versus overall career body of work. And then after that, though, and I'm thinking backyard football, give me Jacoby Jones. I went back and forth. I went back and forth here between him and another guy. But the combination of speed and size in that 7-on-7 is just too much to pass up. And so personal favorite of mine, I consider Hollywood Brown. I consider Mike Wallace, but had to take Jones for the size and speed combination. So as of now, entering that last round, we're looking at Steve McNair, Ray Rice, Derek Mason, Shannon Sharp, Jonathan Ogden, and Jacoby Jones. Feeling pretty good.
Nice. Good job. So back to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I believe. Okay. So I guess it really doesn't matter which way I go here because both of you guys have both of these spots locked up. So I guess just for the sake of it, I'll take my quarterback. I'll take Joe. I really kind of went back and forth on whether or not I'd go Huntley here instead of Flacco. And again, we're talking 7-on-7 rules, people. So don't hear what I'm not saying and freak out and tag me in nasty things on Twitter. But
I'm going to do that anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Fake crying GIF guy. Anyway, yeah, let's go with Flacco. We'll take the big arm. He's got 2 fast receivers that he can chuck it down there to. Mark Andrews over the middle. You can never really go wrong when you got Joe Cool in your squad. So,
all right. So it's time for my last 2 picks, and it's tight end and running back. And I don't know. I think we have a little bit of a weird, oddly colored version of like older Ravens players. Because just since you mentioned it, I was looking it up. Todd Heap's 40 time was 0.01 seconds slower than Mark Andrews. Now, I'm not saying I think Andrews plays a lot faster than Heap. I think they're very different players. Heap is Andrews can run after the catch. Heap was not that guy. But I don't I'm going to take Todd Heap because he is the clear number 3 in this draft. I think Sharp was a pick. I probably should have gone Sharp over Bolden, I think, in hindsight. But I really, really love Bolden. I just really have fond memories of the time in Baltimore. And I think the fun thing with these drafts is to add a little more personal flavor to it. And I think that's why I was okay with just waiting out for Heap and Lewis, Jamal Lewis, who's going to be my second pick here, because those are the guys who defined Ravens football when I first got into it. It wasn't the wide receivers. It was the tight end and the running back that were the most important skill positions on offense. And I think Jamal Lewis ran like a 4.44 something 40 times. So again, not slow. Definitely is going to bring more of that powerful running style that's not as super conducive to 7-on-7. But just in terms of looking at an offense, you've got Lamar handing the ball off to Jamal Lewis, and then he's passing to Bateman, Todd Heap, and Anquan Bolden. And so hopefully those guys will just be able to get open because they're not going to get too much further after that, depending on how, of course, the 7-on-7 defenses that we draft in the future shake out. But those are my last 2 picks. Ron?
All right. I like it. So all I have left here is tackle. I'm not going to waste too much time on it. We're going Orlando Brown Jr. Just give me an athletic guy. He's a left tackle. We all know
athletic.
Maybe athletic was the wrong word. Forgive me as I enjoy my ice cold beverage here. Forgive me. So regardless, just give me Orlando Brown. It's I already know I'm not winning the tackle category anyway with you guys having Stanley and Ogden. So, I could have picked James Hurst. You know what I mean? It wouldn't have mattered anyway. So just you give me Orlando Brown, and that'll wrap up my draft here.
All right. As tempting as it is to keep the tackle train going and take like a guy like maybe Bryant, oh my gosh, what's his name, McKinney, as my tackle. All I got left is interior line. Matt Burke's an easy pick for that. Guys like Ben Grubbs, Assembly could have been options, but 7-on-7, you're looking for someone a little more athletic. Centers generally more athletic. Give me Burke. And for a team that has struggled with snap issues the last few years, we're taking the center, not a guard.
I trust both of y'all to figure it out.
Those were the two that I was going back and forth between whether it was going to be Jensen or Burke, but good pick.
Right,
I like.
So, Mike and Ron, you guys want to give a quick overview of each of your draft classes as well?
Yeah. So I think I pretty much just have the 2014 Ravens here. I got Flacco, Forsett, Steve Smith, Torrey Smith, and then we go Jensen, Orlando Brown, Mark Andrews.
All right. And Mike?
Steve McNair, Ray Rice, Derek Mason, Jacoby Jones, Shannon Sharp, Matt Burke, and Jonathan Ogden.
All right. That's a heck of a draft class. I think this ended up being pretty competitive. And I think that's partially because we all went in our own direction in terms of like who our personal favorite players are. I think that made it more fun. So we're definitely to come back and do a defense.
You didn't rattle off your team, Nikhil.
Oh, my bad. Of course. My team has Lamar Jackson at quarterback, Anquan Bolden and Rashad Bateman at wide receiver, Todd Heap at tight end, Jamal Lewis at running back, Ronnie Stanley offensive tackle, and Marshall Yanda at interior offensive line. So I think three pretty different teams there. I think it'll be fun when we draft defenses. We're also going to talk about, what the strategy is going to be there. And I also think it would be fun. I know we actually didn't discuss this before going live, but as a third one, what we could do is draft specialists and coaching staffs as our final one, because I think that's something that Ravens uniquely appreciate. Coaching staff, maybe a little bit less or so, although I think we know a lot more assistant coaches in Baltimore than maybe the average fan does, just because they're kind of randomly prominent a lot. But I think specialists is something that has just been always so big in this team's history. So we'll definitely have to come up for some special rules for that, because there's only one Justin Tucker.
Only 3 head coaches.
Yeah,
who's getting stuck with Ted Marchibroda?
Well, so what I was going to say, though, is that, there's been a lot of decent to very good defensive and offensive, I guess, coordinators throughout our history. So say you want to go and put, a Rex Ryan as your head coach. Like, I feel like that plays.
Yeah, I had a couple ideas for that. Either someone that you would want to promote to a head coach position, or someone that had a head coaching position before or after elsewhere. I think either of those would be pretty fun. So I think that'd be a fun way. And that way we have like a full 7-on-7 team to consider and by the end of all this. So gentlemen, it's May 26th. We're about to head in Memorial Day weekend. And, when we come out, we'll be in June. And that means we're only going to have a couple months left until it's time for the preseason. That's pretty much all I have for this week's episode. Mike, thanks so much for joining us. Ron, anything from you?
Just keep an eye on the social medias, because we're going to be putting up a tweet on the podcast account, and we'll all retweet it and share it on our personal accounts, where you can vote for whose team you think, whose team would you rather have out of the ones we drafted today. So keep an eye out on that. Vote for me. And that's pretty much it.
Incorrect. Vote for me. And specifically not Mike or Ron. So
false.
Make sure you don't do that. But again, thanks so much, guys, for joining us. And have a good one. Thanks from Kevin to avoid drafting the DoorDash drivers as a secondary. If someone says Robert Jackson's it drafts Robert Jackson next week, I think we're going to have a big
Kev, you joined us a little too late.
The podcast is going to melt down. But as always, gentlemen, thanks so much. And thanks everyone for tuned in. Have a good night.